Hello, good afternoon. Let's resume our session, and so we have some problem on the USM node, so you won't be able to get access to the FIWARE lab in USM. So what we'll do is that we'll do the live demo for you so that you can see how it is done. But unfortunately, you won't have access to the hands-on by yourself. So before I talk about how you can create your own virtual machine and install some of the FIWARE enablers on top of it, I would like to show you a demonstration for the subscription mechanism which we talked in our last session. So on the screen you can see a program that I've written in another language called F#. So people who are familiar with functional programming language, so it's a pure functional major programming language, let's say it like that. So it's written in a functional language. So you can see what it does is that it actually, first what we'll do is that we'll try to create an entity. We'll try to create a subscription on one of the attributes of the entity. And what we'll do is that we will send a mail in case if something is changed, okay? Or send an SMS as well at the same time. But I cannot do SMS here, but I can show how it can be done. So I have deployed this program on my server, which is running on the cloud, okay? So I'm just going to here is my program. I just here. So I'm just going to run it here because yep. So it's running now. And here, if I go, let me first see if I have some subscription already created. So I can see there is one subscription created. I don't want any subscription to be created in advance, so I will just delete it. So I told you how to delete. You can use a delete verb to delete. So I just delete it, and normally you should get 204 no content for successful deletion. No matter if it's you're doing it for subscription or if you're doing for entities, the standard is same. You should get the same error code, same response code. Okay, so let me just see if the entity is created. It's already created, but let me just, I just don't want to, I want to create it fresh, so I'll delete the entity also. So this is a simple entity, which we saw in the example also. We're just trying to create a room with some temperature, humidity, and location. Let's just create that. It's created. Okay. Now you can see, before we do that, let's try to do a put here. Okay, what it will do, that it will change the value of the temperature, increase the temperature, okay? So normally you won't see anything on the on my console. Here it is. So you can see the program did not react because we did not create the subscription yet. Okay, so I'll just create a subscription. You can see it's nothing. It's the same thing we discussed before. So the pattern is dot star. The condition if the temperature is changed, and notification is notify URL. So I'll show you what is the notify URL looks like, and then I would like to have temperature and humidity when temperature is changed. So here is how the URL. So this is the IP, the public IP of my server. Okay, the port on which I'm listening to, and /notify. So it's a server which I have created, and I'm just listening to it so that if there is a change, I can perform some operation. In this case, I'm sending a mail to inform. Okay, so let's do it. Let me just create a subscription first. Okay, it's created. To see if it's successfully created, I can do a get here on the subscription to see if it's created. So I can see it's created, no problem. So now if I try to, let's say, change it from 21.7 to, let's say, 30, if I try to change in my system, I should now normally get something on my program which is running here. You can see there is something is detected, and if I check my mail, I can see that there is alert raised. The temperature is changed. Okay, so this is how you can simply create subscription, and you can inform, or you can take action. Maybe you can do it for let's say Android app or iPhone app, something like that. Similarly. So as you can see, I may have a different quota in different tenants. So I'm using this tenant name Demo Orange Malaysia, and you can see here my quota. So I have a quota of creating up to 5 instances. I have a quota of having 20 vCPUs. I can have 40 gigs of RAM, 5 floating IPs. I can create up to 10 security groups. I can create 10 volumes and 100 volume storage. I think one is for SSD and one is for the normal storage. So I can, if I clone there, if I just browse it, then there is option for creating instances. When I click on instances, I can see the list of instances. Okay. Now, just to tell you, this morning when I was doing the demo, I was doing the demo on this machine. Okay. This was the IP of that machine, public IP, and then the demo that just did for alert, it was running on this server. Okay, so you can see here the list of all the servers that you have. We will create our own virtual machine in a moment after I show you about the other features. Then you have option to create volumes. Okay, so you could create some storage, and you can attach this volume to your virtual machine. Okay, some people prefer to practice this because in case if your VM crashes, you have the option to your data is stored in your volume, so that it's just like you can just relate it like a pen drive that you can plug it to your VM. Then images. Okay, so these are the list of all images available on FIWARE Lab. Okay, you can see there are a lot of images. So images you can relate it's the operating system that you're going to install on your virtual machine. Okay, so Orion. So some of them are you can relate to. For instance, there is one. It should be Ubuntu here. Yeah, you can see Ubuntu 18. You can also see Ubuntu 16 somewhere. So these are the base images of Ubuntu. But if there are some images available which are like some software installed on top of it, and so that you can directly spawn that. Let's say you want an image which is already installed with Orion Context Broker, then you can have that image. So I am using the Orion Context Broker and Context Broker interchangeably because it's the same thing. Most of the enablers, if you have observed in FIWARE, are named at the name of constellation and space objects, like Orion Context Broker, STH Comet, Cygnus. So these are like constellations and different space bodies. So what we are going to do, we'll create a VM in a few moments, but let me first go to Access and Security section. So here there are some security groups. Okay, I can I can create a security group. So security groups, it means that you can define the incoming and outgoing traffic. You can define some rules that you would want that particular type of traffic, or these ports you would like to open some ports incoming or outgoing that you for the communication. So you can restrict it using security groups. For instance, there is you can just let me just create one for you. So I'm going to name it, let's say, cBroker PH. Okay, I'll create this security group. I click on manage rules. Okay, so you see egress. Okay, so egress means that it means that for both IPv4 and IPv6, we are allowing all the exiting traffic, okay, to any location. So we have opened this. This means this. We can make a rule definitely. Now, let's say for accessing the context broker, as I told you, it runs on 1026 port. So for that, we need to open the incoming traffic to 1026. How to do that? So click on add rule. Okay. So here you can see you can choose ingress or egress, and here I define the port. So I want to open port 1026, and I will define the IP here. Okay, so now the CIDR, maybe the people from networking background will understand it. You can define, let's say you want the access. You can define that you want the access of this virtual machine for this particular port to. This port should be open for a specific group of IPs. Okay, if you want that, something like that, so you can, or specific IP, in fact, just one IP, because it's a good practice to do that. But for now, we will open the traffic for everyone. So that's why 0000, and I just click on add. Okay, I'll create another rule. Now, since we are creating a virtual machine, we will need to we'll need to connect it via SSH. Now SSH listens at port 22, so we also need to open the port 22. It's although very recommended that you should not open port 22 for like this. You should only open the port 22. You should for your, let's say, for your forward proxy. So whatever forward proxy you have here, so you define that so that you can restrict the access to your network only. Okay. So similar to that, you have options to define networks. You can create your own network, router, and like that. Now let's start by creating a virtual machine. So you can do it by just clicking the launch instance here. Okay, and you can define the name of the instance that you want. So let it be cBroker PH. You need to choose the flavor. Now flavor would define what would be the size of your virtual machine. So let me choose it to maybe large. How much is the RAM? Yeah, this should be okay. So you can see I'm have chosen the large flavor, which means 4 vCPU, 4 virtual CPU, 80 GB of storage, and total disk of total is 80 GB. So sometimes they have two type of storage mechanisms. So some cloud provider, they also provide SSD storage. They don't have SSD storage because it's just a sandbox. So you might have like another disk attached to the same VM. And then we select the source. So we select here boot from image. Of course, you have option for boot from snapshot also. Let's say you're running a VM and you can take an image and you perform some operation. You can create an image of that VM, and then you can take a snapshot of that VM, and then you can boot another VM from that snapshot, from that state of the virtual machine. So I click here. I now select Ubuntu 16. I want to install Ubuntu 16.0. There we go. And then I go to the next point, which is access and security. Okay. Now it talks about key pair. Okay, so I'm just going to use this key Brittany. Actually, the key pair provides you the it's like a key for you. It provides you public and private key set. Okay, so for accessing your virtual machine, you have to use your private key to access your virtual machine. So here, maybe let me create one. In fact, that would be for you to better understand. Let's create one quickly. Okay, thing not here. Can click on create key pair. Let it be again CBroker PH, and we create the key pair. So as soon as I do that, you get a PEM key here. Okay. Now let me just go back to the instances. Launch instance. Base as Ubuntu 16.0, and then I select the key which I just created, the rule, the security group that I created just now. I'll choose that group that I would like to apply the security group rules defined in this, and I would use this key pair CBroker PH to access my virtual machine. There is one network only. Currently, I'm not creating another network, although you can do if it's required. And that's it. I just create on launch. Let's see what happens. Okay, so your VM is successfully started. It's actually deployed and started at the same time. So I need to, in order to access it, as you can see, there is one IP here. In order to access it, I need to associate a public IP to it so that you can access it. We can access it from internet. So in order to do that, I can just click on this. I can click on associate floating IP. I can select an IP. So these are all public IPs. Let's select this one. I click on associate. Okay, then you're connected already. Yeah, you can see that there is another IP here. So the association is successful. And now what I'll do is that I will try to connect to this VM. In order to do that, as you know that when we try to create a key, we saw the spam file. In order to now we'll use a tool called Putty. I think yesterday Dr. Asif installed Putty on your virtual machine. So what you can do is that first, in order to use this key, I need to extract the private key PPK from it. So for that, there is one tool called PUTTYGEN, PuttyGen. I'll download this. This is a fresh machine. Okay, so I'll download the 64-bit version. That's it. I'll just run it. And then I'll load my key, which I downloaded. Here it is. And I'll save the private key because I need the private key to access the VM. Saved. Now I'll open my Putty tool. And I'll copy the public IP. Let's call it cbroker PH. Then I need to go to this section. In connection, I need to go to auth. And here I need to locate my private key. Okay. And after that, I can go back here. Or I can go to data and I can define the auto login username. So by default, the auto login username should be Ubuntu. And I hit save. There seem to be some problem in the network I'm trying to investigate. Meanwhile, do we have any question until now? Would you like to ask anything? Okay, so seems like there were two problems. Problem number one was that when was I using Azure? So problem is not resolved yet. One problem was now we are connected, but one problem was that when I was using Azure, there was local firewall. The local Windows Defender was blocking my port. And the second problem was that I used when I tried to create the VM second time, I used the micro flavor, so it was very small to load Ubuntu image, which is why I was not able to log in. Now, as you can see, I'm still not able to log in this client. It's because I did not add the key on this in this machine. So let me just add the key, and then it should work. So this is the different SSH client. This is not free. You could use Putty. I have told you how to use it. So for this demo, I'm using this client. Okay, so we are in, right? So we created a virtual machine with Ubuntu image, and it's not working on my remote machine. It's because of Azure Windows 2016 Defender, Windows Defender, and its firewall, probably. So what I'm going to do is that what we'll do is that we will install few things on this VM. Okay, so. So first I run sudo sudo-su. It's for switching to the root because I would like to install a few things and I just want to be on root. Simple as that. I just create a new directory. Okay. Then I just, this is my code actually hosted on GitLab, sorry. So I'm just doing a git clone. How are you aware of Git? Great. So I'm just cloning my code here. Okay, so here we have installed docker.sh. So we are going to install Docker on this virtual machine because what I'm going to, there are multiple ways to make the installation of FIWARE enablers, but I would advise you the easiest way to spawn your FIWARE enablers is using Dockers. So I will it's just I'll just write this. I have written this script actually. You can see on my left here. This script is actually doing nothing. It's just installing Docker. Okay. So I'll just what I'll do is that I'll just call this script and it will install Docker. While it takes some time, do you have any questions? So how many of you use Docker? You do. Okay. Okay. So we learned a lot about virtual machine today. So this will take some time. So maybe I can talk a little bit about Docker. So what Docker is, that the benefit of virtual machine that you get, first of all, let's talk about it. So the virtualization that you get is that you get the possibility to maximum utilize your resources, okay? Maximum utilize your CPU, RAM, and hard disk, because you can, say, even just create some small pockets, and you can install operating system top of it, and then you can have maximum utilization of your resources. Because if you just run it for one use, let's say before, traditionally what we were doing is that there was a proper physical machine for just a web server and rest. So web server was taking some part of it, and then the rest was getting wasted. And after that, the virtual machine came. So in virtual machine you have but the problem with the virtual machine is that you still have a kernel, okay? So every virtual machine has its own kernel. So it's an overhead that whenever you create a virtual machine, you also install a kernel with it, okay? Now what Docker helps you to do that, it helps you to create a very thin layer, and your Dockers can share the kernel of its host, okay? Because kernel is just, actually arranging the processes, prioritizing processes, making use of threads. But using Dockers, you can remove that restriction from virtual machine. So usually in Dockers, the best practice is that we usually run only one process in one Docker. That's the practice, okay? So, but the Docker, when you log into a Docker, it's just like a virtual machine most of the times, in fact. You will have access to a file system, things like that. Not later in networking, you can create some networks. Now another advantage you get using Dockers is it's installed now. Is when you develop microservices architecture. Do you use anyone use microservices here? Okay, so you know that in when you have the, let's talk about the e-commerce application like Amazon. So when you have a application of e-commerce application, so it has different modules like sales module, you have the module for inventory and so on, or maybe for registration. So some of the modules need a lot of computing power while compared to others. For instance, they would be more sign-in compared to registration and like that, right? So what you can do, that you can divide your application development into, you can segregate it. You can have one module for sale, a different service altogether for sale, individual service, and individual service for registration. So if one fails, let's say if registration fails, you still would be able to sign into your system, right? So using Docker, what you can do is that, and microservices, you can install your service, let's say sales service in one Docker and in another Docker. So you can do, then Docker also supports orchestration, something like if you have heard about Kubernetes. So what you can do is that you can orchestrate. So you can, let's say, if you find that there is more sale, you can increase the performance of sale by creating more pods for sales and less for registration. So you will have more control, more fine-tuned control in your application, that which feature of your application requires more CPU power or RAM compared to the other features. So this is how you can create more fine-tuned control of your resources. Now, since Docker is installed, I'll just run this command here, which will just see if it's successfully installed. Yeah, it's successfully installed, 18.0.95. I've installed another tool called Docker Compose. It helps me to create some kind of packages. Okay, so it's installed. Okay, so here I'll show you my what we call as a Docker compose file. Okay, now there are a lot of advantages of Docker, so this is also one of the advantages. So it's just like you can just relate it with like apt-get or yum, the used to install software. So there is something called what we call as the Docker registry, on which all these images of the base images of Ubuntu, you can find the base image of Apache, you can find the base image. A lot of images are there already. And you can find even very, very lightweight images, which is more recommended, in fact. It's recommended to use as light image as you can. And you can even install, even you can create Docker for your own application if required. But here what you see on your left, as I told you that Orion is a software which is written in C++, and it uses Mongo dependency, Mongo as its backend. So first thing on your on the left you see version 2, which is the version of this Docker compose file. Then I'm creating a network, okay? So I'm creating different Dockers, and I'm creating a network called ANWorkCB, okay? So I want all of my Dockers. You can just think of them as just a virtual machine, okay? For simplicity, but they are not. And below that I can see services. So you can see Mongo. So I first create Mongo. I've defined here image Mongo 3.4. So we are defining here that I would like to spawn Mongo. The version is 3.4. Then environment, as this is the environment variable. I'm setting here environment variables. After that, volumes. So most of the Dockers that we have, actually, the right practice of Docker is for them to be stateless, which means that they usually do not have any storage in them. So they don't store anything. So for the storage, you need to map a volume with your host storage. So here I've defined some volume. Then ports. So I would like to expose port 27017, okay, just like exposing port, okay, that you do on your proxies. So what I've done is that the internal port of 27017, I'm exposing it to the host machine, okay? So this is how you do it. And then networks. So I'm associating ANWorkCB network to this Mongo Docker. Then Orion. Here is FIWARE Orion. So all these images are actually stored on Docker Hub. So if I just go here, where is all these things are coming from? They're coming from here, hub.docker.com. So here you can find all the images that you want to build any kind of application, not just specific to FIWARE. You can search for Apache. You can see this is a official image of Apache HTTPD. Okay, so you can find how you can create a Docker for it. Similar to that, if I show you for FIWARE Orion, in fact. Okay, so you can see FIWARE Orion. Here the image. So I'm using this image. Okay. So I've defined here FIWARE Orion, ports 1026, 1026, and I am actually going to allow the course because I want to allow it. Then I'm defining the network again. Similar to that, I have some more FIWARE enablers which we did not discuss today. They're defined here. Okay. So we'll talk about these enablers. So now, for now, I can just run this Docker -d. So D for daemon. So I just run this as a. So what this is going to do is that it's going to pull all these images from the Docker Hub and start installing these applications in their specific Dockers. This will take some time. Meanwhile, if you have some question, please go ahead. So you can see the benefit directly that using apt-get, you have to follow so many instruction and the manuals and all that, and it's very easy to do with Dockers. Okay, so it's installed. Okay, so you can run command called docker ps, and this will list the Dockers that are currently running on your machine with the respective ports. So you can see the context broker, Orion context broker is running at 1026. So if I do a curl here, so you can see that it's up and running. Okay, so we'll talk about Cygnus enabler. Okay, so we talked a lot about the FIWARE context broker. Now we'll talk about Cygnus enabler, which is, as I told you, it's kind of a messenger, and for your historical analysis of your with the data that is coming from your sensors or other sources. So Cygnus is just above context broker in this architecture, as you can see. So you can either connect it to STH Comet. So I will also talk briefly about STH Comet. and big data and Cosmos big data. So what you require this kind of thing, like collecting, aggregating, and moving data from your which is coming from a context broker to any other source. You can very well do that. Okay, so let me just. So Cygnus is based on Apache Flume. Actually, it has a source and sink. So you can define a source. Source can not always be context broker. So you can also connect the source to another source if required, and you can configure the sink at the same time. So you can have multiple type of configuration here. I'm going to focus more on the sink. So this is how you configure. You can so Cygnus work with as I explained you, it works in subscription mechanism, the publish subscribe mechanism, which I give you a demo for. So this is how you configure it. You just define that at what port Cygnus listen to. So you can see here it's listening to the port 5050 and type HTTP. And then you can define some sinks, okay, that where you want the data to go. So you can see that you can define multiple sinks. So sink means like if you want your data to go to multiple sources, that's your sink. Multiple destination, I mean. You can have the possibility, so Cygnus also provide you the possibility to create different instances for each agent. So you can also run actually multiple Cygnus if required, so that if you want more performance, if you're not able to get the same performance, then you can definitely create more Cygnus, but even one Cygnus can also connect with multiple, can act as a multiple agent. So so here you can see it's example on your bottom. You can see what we have done is that we are creating a subscription here, and we are giving it so whenever there is a change, it should be informed. So this is for oil level. So if there is a change, sorry for speed. So if there is a change in a speed, the Cygnus will actually get the notification and create a history for them. So here is how you can see that the same Cygnus has three different memory channels. So in case of power outage, Cygnus will not be able to persist, because since Cygnus uses, usually don't have power outages in cloud, but Cygnus uses memory channels, okay? So all the data that comes from different sources, so we just know about context broker now, but it could be another source as well. So it gets in a queue, okay? And in form of a memory channel, which is processed one by one. So and then you can see you can also have an Orion sync as well. So Orion, you can either have Orion sync. Sorry, this is not mentioned here, but you can also have Orion sync. So maybe one Orion to another Orion. Then you can see that you can dump your historical data in all format like SDFS, CCAN, and MySQL. So you have a possibility to store your historical data in MySQL. So if you like to query, so you can create your application using MySQL CCAN or sync also. I prefer to use STH Comet for my historical data needs, which I'll show you in the next presentation. Okay, so you can see some configuration. You will get access to this presentation, so you can see by yourself. But you can see this is the configuration of SDFS sync. So if you're using Hadoop, this is the configuration. This is, I think, for Hive. You can define your Hive host here. Okay. Your historical information. So you could either store it as a row or column, so you can configure it the way you want. Okay. So now I'll discuss about STH Comet, which is so we learned about the Cygnus, which is just a matter of configuration, and then you can create the stream coming from context broker to other sinks. Okay. Now, so if I talk about Comet here, so it's actually, normally it's recommended, I mean, if it depends on your application, in fact. If your application doesn't have a lot of data generation and you don't have a lot of historical data generation, then it's better to use STH Comet. It provides you very basic capability of aggregation and time series. So, so as I told you, the context broker only stores the latest attribute values, which is the short-term historical adds memory to equation. So you could have like continuous improvement paradigm. Maybe they want to say it's about historical analysis. So what access do you get by using STH Comet? So values indexed in time, which we also call as time series. You could get raw data, you could get aggregate data, you could get range, resolution, you could set origin, you could set offset. There's an option actually, you can skip Cygnus altogether. So if you don't want multiple sinks at the same time, maybe if your application just care for the aggregation time series, you can simply connect your context broker directly to your STH Comet, or if you require your data to be sent to multiple sinks, in that case you can use Cygnus. Okay, so here is example for the direct connection. I'll show you some of the query that so you can do. So it would be able to what STH can do. You should be aware of it. Like if you need advanced analytics, then maybe it not be able to do it. So it's better to use Hadoop, for instance. Here you can see it can give you, like, if you want to give like maximum temperature of this room during the last month, you can get this aggregated by day. So per day you can get the aggregate of temperature of this room last month. Give me the mean temperature of this room today. You can have like standard deviation. You can have number of times the air condition of this room was switched on or off last Monday. So you can have pretty much a bit complex query as well at the same time. So here is I think I'll show you the query itself. So so this is how the query looks like. Okay. So once you set your Cygnus to send the data to the STH Comet, this is how your query looks like. You say STH v1/context entities /type/entity type. So here you have to define the entity type. For instance, a room /ID of that entity. So which entity do you want to have historical analysis on? Then attributes, attribute name. Then you can set a limit and offset. So you can, let's say you want the record from 0 to 10. And then you can also set, it's for number of pages that you want, actually, limit and offset. Then you can also set that you want this particular attribute from this date to this date. Okay, you can define. So you will get the whole time series. Now, I talked a little bit about the FIWARE service and FIWARE service paths. So FIWARE service is for the multi-tenancy, so you can create multiple services which acts as a multiple tenant, because in the background your data would be stored in different Mongo collections, okay, so that you can have a clear separation. So here I define my FIWARE service and service path. Now you can see auth token, because here in this example they're using the authentication authorization mechanism of FIWARE. You have the possibility of page, just if you want just top 10 pages, you can also do that, as in this example. This is the kind of response you get. Okay, so from the query you get this at this time. So what you have queried for, let's say you have queried for temperature. No, this doesn't look like temperature. Let's call it pressure. So let's say if you have queried for pressures, and you can see here that you have the value of the pressure at this time timestamp this timestamp this, and so on. Okay, so you can see what is the whole time series using STH Comet. Okay, so how to do the aggregation now? So it's very simple. In the same way that what we did before, we just defined the AGGR method equal to sum, because you would like to add the result of those attributes. Period equal to day. So you want to add the, let's say, the water consumed in the tank here for the whole day, for instance. Okay, you would like to monitor the water in the tank here. So you would like to measure the water consumption per day. So what you do is you keep the AGGR method equal to sum, the period as day, then you define from, then you define to, and followed by the FIWARE service path, and so on. So in this way you get the per day statistics. Now these are some advanced concepts for data removal, so we'll not talk about it. You will find all the details how you can install it. What I would like to show you now is the configuration for the Comet, which is there. You get the access to the source code also. Here it is. So you can see this is the configuration. Now if you do the configuration manually using your installing Cygnus directly on your virtual machine, it's going to be difficult. Using using the Dockers is relatively very easy. So here I have defined a configuration for storing the historical information coming out. So you can see, just you define the image, you define some environment variable. So here we are storing the historical information on MongoDB. So STH Comet uses MongoDB also for storing the historical information. So I'm just storing the information, and I've defined the persistent mechanism for column based. So they could be either row based or column based, okay? And then I've exposed the port 5050, 5018, 8281. So actually these are the default ports for different kind of syncs, but maybe I think for STH Comet is 5050. So here STH comment configuration is also simple. You can easily define here Telefonica IT IoT / FIWARE STH comment, and then you can simply I think there is no much configuration. You just need to define host and the URL of Mongo. That's it. This will also spawn the STH comment. If I go back on my VM, you can see that it's already installed. Both Comet and Cygnus are already installed. So when you have the source code, you can play with it. Okay, so one last thing before I end. One last thing I would like to tell you is the source code that you will get. So you will get some exercises here. You can see in the practices, you can see how you can learn how to create single entities. There are some exercises for multiple entities, attributes, then how to for different types. So you can see how you can use it for pagination. So we did not. So you can have, as I told you, you can have pagination. So you can have top 50 from 0 to 50 pages, or you can have 50 to 50. So you can browse this guide to do your test. Then geolocation queries, filtering. There are examples of filtering in this demo. Now, service path is the one for multi-tenancy. And then you will also have the code here. You can see the code for data alert and the ingestion that we saw in the morning. So I think that's all.